This episode is hot. Come on in and meet the creator and the fuel for the world's longest running fire and circus arts festival. She's a dangerous delight that grins from ear to ear while wielding a flamethrower, and she can teach you safely. Hello to all you creative geniuses out there. Thank you so much for joining me, Joseph Andrin, on this episode of Art on Fire. It's a connective podcast for participants of events that focus on community, art, self-expression, self-reliance, all the beautiful things, all the good things. We want to tell a new story, and we want more people to be telling these beautiful stories too. You can join us on Patreon to connect with more people in the community, to connect with the guests on the show a little bit more, and to learn about all the things that are happening all over the globe and where the opportunity to participate is. There you'll meet lots of people like our guest today, Hana Priest, also known as the Priestess of the Flame, the Fire Girl. She's a business owner of Dangerous Delights, founder and creator of SpunOut Fire and Circus Festival, and she's the camp lead of Fire Tribe at Blazing Swan. Hana has been giving her attention to fire for decades now, running SpunOut Fire Arts Festival for 18 years. It's an all-inclusive event that features an inferno of fiery performances and workshops for all levels of fire artists or circus enthusiasts. Participants at SpunOut say that the performances put on there are like nowhere else on earth. Hana, unsurprisingly, is a lover of Burning Man and even had her wedding there. As early as 2006, Hana has been organizing troops to make the 17,000 kilometer, 10,000 mile, one-way journey from Perth to Nevada for the annual event. She and the Australian crew were active participants in fire performances at those events, and that desire to participate there led Hana to participating in the co-leading the establishment of the official regional West Australian Burning Man event, Blazing Swan. Hana also runs a performing arts business, Dangerous Delights, which gives people who want their event to feature a red-hot difference access to the hottest performers in Perth. I'm feeling hot just thinking about it. But it's about to get hotter, and if you want it to get hotter, well, you just got to join us in the Genius Ignition System, and I'm talking to you. This is a process that if you get involved with and participate in right now, I guarantee you 100% of the time, it'll give you an awesome takeaway from the show. And to make it happen, all you got to do is rub your hands together like this. Rub your hands, and I mean you. Do it now, do it now, do it now. And in 3, 2, 1, we're going to do a simultaneous clap, and we're going to make a declaration. 3, 2, 1. I've touched a genius. That's the declaration. Put it in your head. You guys are a genius. Now let's get on with the show.
Hello.
Yay, thanks so much for coming down.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for the high five. I've touched a genius. And a flamey genius of that as well.
Well, thank you for making me your genius of choice for today.
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah, let's get into it. So how did you get into fire? When did you get into fire? Why did you get into fire?
Well, that's the question I get asked probably the most often by anybody. And funnily enough, or cheesily enough, it happened at Burning Man when I was there. And I went to Burning Man because a friend of mine was just like, hey, I heard about this festival. Do you want to go? I had no idea what it was about or anything. And then one evening I was there and I was on top of this structure called Thunderdome, which is like a big geodesic dome. People climb all over it. And basically I was looking down and there was this just beautiful performance space where I was on this dome. And it may not even have been in Thunderdome, but it was a dome like it anyway. And there was a fire performance happening down the bottom.
But it was literally beneath you?
Beneath me, yes. Yeah, cool. I was looking down on it. And it was like this fire theatre. Like I'd seen fire spinners before on the beaches in Thailand and stuff. And I thought, oh yeah, that's cool. But it didn't really inspire me. It was just a nice kind of thing to have a look at. But in this moment when I was on this dome looking down, there was like a couple of women and they had like burning headdresses and palm torches and these beautiful costumes. And it just looked so otherworldly and magical. And I just remember the thought just came to my mind. There was like, I want to be that. Whatever that is, that's what I want to be. And it was like the first time in my life where I knew what I wanted to be.
How old were you at this stage?
I'm 24.
And how did your parents feel when you told them that you knew what you wanted to do with your life?
Oh, look, my mum still thinks I'm just going through a phase, to be honest. She's still hoping I grow out of it.
How did you break it to her? Is this like a coming out of the closet of some sort? Just be like, Mum?
Well, thankfully at the time when I saw that, I was living in the UK and I flew back to Reading in the UK where I was and found a little circus arts community that met in like the town hall there and just started learning from the people there. And The next year I went back to Burning Man, but I could spin fire poi, just super basic spinning.
Yep. Poi is the ones on the ends of the chain?
Yeah, so that's the burning balls on the end of a chain.
And you have two of them normally.
Yeah,
right?
and you have two of them normally, and you kind of spin them in various ways. And so I went to Burning Man with my little fire poi, and I remember just like spinning out there at Burning Man being like, I'm one of those people now. And I was just...
Dream achieved.
I knew like the basics, but it was like I was touching the dream. I was getting there. And that was kind of the seed that everything else came from, because I loved it so much. I enjoyed it so much in a way that I'd never enjoyed anything else before, which made me obviously want to do it more. And the community that surrounded that art form as well, I found to be really fun, vibrant, interesting, very genuine, open, fun-loving people. It was like being a kid again, you know, where you're an adult, but now you have this means to play and have fun like you're a child. You don't have to be all like responsible and grown up and say all the right things. And so I think that was part of it as well. There was the danger and skill of fire, because it's exciting, but then there was also the community around that, and that combined, I think, is what drove me to do more and more over time.
So before that moment where you're sitting in the geodesic dome looking down,
Yeah.
were you what was your, were you studying? Were you working? What was your family doing? Like, did you have circus experience, or were you acrobatic? Could you backflip?
Nope.
Cartwheel?
Nothing.
Could you cartwheel? No?
I'm not
Maybe.
sure I can brilliantly cartwheel now, to be honest.
Yep.
No, I came from a very super normal family, you know, with super normal jobs, and anything in the arts was considered a hobby, but not a reliable source of income by all means. It was like, you know, if you want to do anything artistic, do that on the weekends as a side hobby. It's very nice, but have a proper job. And so it was never encouraged to do arts stuff.
Yep.
Apart from like, you know, you can go and teach yourself guitar out of this guitar book or something. And so I wasn't an arty kind of person. I didn't feel like I was an artist, or certainly not a performer. I remember applying for the specialist dance classes in high school and being rejected and just being like, I am so rubbish. I'm not, like, this is not me. There's so many people better than me. So it's not something I ever felt that I was or could be. And so kind of the fire was sort of an interesting way into becoming an artist that I never knew I was, or that I was discouraged from being. And
There's a little bit of permission there, or allowance there, or non-critiquiness there as well when it comes in the burning community, like in the art schools in school. Like I'm guessing, I mean, my experience was art in school was always just something that I just couldn't do. But I do want to play with more. Is it something different?
Well, I think it was interesting coming from the kind of Burning Man perspective of art, is that if you've ever listened to interviews with Larry Harvey, the founder of Burning Man, he says, you know, everyone is an artist. We all have art within us, but it's having the space or the being allowed to express it, you know. And some people's art is industrial art. They'll weld things and they'll build some kind of interesting, massive sculpture, but it's a very kind of manly art form where you're grinding and welding and you've got steel and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And those people maybe don't consider themselves an artist, because we think of art as painting and drawing and the really fine kind of little fiddly things. But art is actually a lot of things. It can be how you choose to dress yourself.
Yep.
You know, you can be a moving piece of art in just expressing yourself through clothing, or amazing fancy makeup, or, you know, some people like to have their nails really detailed and they're like individual little artworks with their own little gallery walking around, like, you know, and some people's art is singing or dancing or, you know, everyone has art in them, but it's having somebody recognize that in you, that you actually are an artist. What is your art?
So again, you're sitting on the geodesic dome, you saw this thing, you want to do it, and then here you are 1 year later now performing, kind of being given the space to express that and to be seen that way. Was that a key like moment where you could be recognized as a creative in that space, or what, did anything else pivotal happen while you're in London when you went and met the circus arts community there, or London, England?
Well, I think it was about rather than being recognized and being like, look at me,
Yeah.
how fancy I am. It was more.
Thanks for the clarification. I really didn't mean for it to sound like that, but yeah.
No, but some people think that people perform in order to get some kind of personal validation, to be like, look at me, look, I'm special, because otherwise you don't feel special in life or something. But for me, it was very much about connection and community and that kind of little arts community in Reading, you know, the people who taught spinning there and helped each other out to learn tricks. And then going to Burning Man, well, as soon as you spin the prop, you're instantly in with the other prop spinners because they're like, oh, you're like us. And so you can find these little communities wherever you go, because you have fire and circus communities in every country all over the world. And it's almost like an instant sense of community wherever you travel. You know, so I found that aspect of it really nice.
I want to lean into that a little bit as well. So I don't currently spin fire, but with the just the participatory value that's on the Burning Man and the Burning Man style festivals, with just this, like you mentioned, the moment you start spinning, then you're connected with everyone else who's spinning. But for myself, if I'm not spinning, like if I just start dancing in time, I'm all of a sudden part of the act as well. And I think that's such a beautiful part of that festival, where it's just like, just participate and you're in, right? Like just whatever you got, just bring that and you're good. Which is a really beautiful place to play, to expand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what that was about. But then also the joy that you're bringing to those watching you, you know, because when you're a fire spinner, there's only so many of you allowed in a fire circle for safety reasons, but then you've got loads of people watching you. And then looking at their faces where they're experiencing excitement and joy or wonder at just seeing what you do, even if you don't feel like you're very good at it, you're kind of still better than the person watching you. And so they're admiring you, even if you're at a very basic level, because you're still doing something cool with fire. And so it's being able to bring that wonder and joy to other people as well. So it's really rewarding in that regard. And that's what I get a lot out of being a performer, is that those moments of joy that you're able to bring to complete strangers just by doing the thing that you love doing.
And when I was preparing for this conversation, I got to speak with one of your friends, Kat. Thank you for the hookup with Kat. Yep. And when she was describing you and some of the things that you do, which we'll get to in a moment, but I got this. Do you know who Travis Pastrana is?
Don't think so.
He runs a mob called Nitro Circus. They're
I've heard of them.
The Bogan lads with the motorbikes, and they do the like triple backflips and stuff. Yeah. And they have a live touring show, and they're funny. I'm a huge fan of Travis Pastrana, and I got the same kind of vibe from the way Kat was describing you. It's like, it's not like competitive. It's just like, it's community, it's inclusive. You're like, everyone's wanting to hold space for everyone else to do their best, or they have their most fun, or whatever, however you describe it. I'd be curious to hear how you describe it, but everyone's holding space for that. It's not a look at me. It's not a competitive thing. It's not an ego thing. It's like it's a space where everyone wants everyone else to do that. And I understand that that's what one of the special differences of SpunOut and of Burning Man as well.
Yeah, and it's that sense of celebrating each other's artistic expression, because everyone's good at something and not good at other things, you know, and so you celebrate what somebody's awesome at without kind of being like, oh, I'm jealous, or I wish I was like that, because you're also awesome at something. You know, we're all good at something. We're not good at other things. And so it's good to learn off each other and share information and celebrate each other's, you know, wins and kind of growth and learning and all that kind of stuff, because it's how we collectively elevate ourselves. You know, it's like, I don't lift myself up or get better by putting you down. You know, it's kind of like, well, we can all. You
could, but it's a pretty bad game.
It's an ugly place to be, you know. Whereas if we're all helping each other and sharing and lifting each other up, we all get better. We all feel more joyful. You know, it's
a positive sum game.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's going up.
It's almost just like, how much can I love everybody, you know, and celebrate everybody? Like, how good can this be for all of us, you know?
Yeah, cool. I understand that Crimson Rose has been a inspiration for you personally, and I've heard a little bit of Crimson. Would you care to tell us a little bit about Crimson? Was she there that first time you were on the Geodesic Dome, or how did you come to connect with her, and who is she to you? And who is she to everyone in general?
Well, Crimson's like, look, if fire was a religion, she would be the highest priestess of fire that there is, to my mind anyway. And so the first year I went out to Burning Man, I didn't know her. Same as, I think second year I sort of came across her, but it wasn't until the third time I went out to Burning Man in 2006 that I kind of met and chatted to her and got to know who she is. And she's one of the founders of Burning Man. But her interest has always been in fire, and specifically fire ceremony, and how fire can be used to create ceremonial, meaningful experiences.
Yep.
Yeah, and so she's just this beautiful fire goddess. And I know, I feel like we overuse the term goddess. Like every woman is the goddess, put on a flower of crowns and you're a goddess. But she really is just such a beautiful human being. She's an artist, she paints, her husband does photography, she creates these beautiful labyrinths on the ranches that they live. She's the embodiment of art, I feel. But her specialty is fire, and so what she did for Burning Man was she started to create fire ceremonies around the things that happened, around the burning of the man, the lighting of the cauldron from which all the fires at Burning Man are lit, all the main burn barrels. And so, because humans have...
Sorry, the burn barrels in the man itself that's being burned?
No, around Burning Man. So you have community burn barrels, and there is one central one, and she uses the light from the sun and she concentrates it using this dish. So she basically extracts the fire from the sun.
Oh, good God.
I know, right? And she does a beautiful dance around it, and there's drummers.
And so all the fire barrels are lit based off the fire that she got from the sun.
Yeah, so there's this kind of first fire that's lit.
Are these the fire barrels that are just scattered around the camp for people to be...
The big, huge ones.
Oh, okay.
The big, huge ones that are around the esplanade. So the idea is that she lights that first fire, and then the big burn barrels are lit from that, and then people can light their fires from those. And then when the man burns, the flame that it's lit with is carried from that first fire. So the fire is fed by the community the whole week. It's the community's responsibility to keep it burning, to keep feeding it wood, and then she uses that fire to then light the effigy. So the fire that lights the effigy is extracted from the sun, in essence.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I might have to do research on this one if you don't have this one answered. It's just jumped into my mind. Do you know about the tradition of the fire for the Olympic ceremony, where the fire is literally passed by torch? I believe it goes all the way from the previous country to the next country without being extinguished.
Yeah. And they keep it burning. But my understanding of the Olympic torch fires is that sometimes they do get blown out by the wind, but they always have a spare torch with original fire in it to light the torches back from.
And do you know if they actually move literally from one point to the other, the fire?
That is my understanding of how it works.
That'd be really cool. I might actually look into that. That'd be
I don't know how much of that is true, but that is supposedly how it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Crimson, the artist. How did you come to connect with her? Because you were starting to play with fire?
Yeah, well, she kind of oversees the fire spaces at Burning Man. So you see her kind of pop up at night all over the place. She's got this robe covered in flames. She's very recognisable. And now because she's, older, she's got grey hair, like long grey hair. She kind of stands out as a person, and she's Mama Fire. She pops up all over the place. So I saw her at a fire circle and sort of got chatting to her and just kind of found out who she was through that. And then 2 years later, when I came back to Burning Man in 2008, I was getting married there. And I'm not a religious person, but if fire was a religion, then she would be the priestess within that religion. So I actually said to her, you're the closest thing to something I worship because I love fire. And so I asked if she would please marry us.
Oh my God.
And she'd never done a wedding ceremony before.
Yes.
But she sort of said that, that's amazing, that she would love to do that, and she'll create a ceremony for us. And so she actually married myself and my husband at the time at Burning Man at sunset, and it was absolutely magical. And so I got to know her through that interaction process, and we've pretty much been Facebook friends ever since. So we kind of communicate that way as well sometimes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I've got to do my research better because I knew that you got married at Burning Man. I didn't realize it was by Crimson as well. That's really beautiful. That's a very special experience. And the experience of ceremony, I've got to lean into some interesting ceremonies in the past 5-10 years. A large one I did was like a death ritual. I love talking to people about that experience because it was one of the most, spiritual loving experiences of my life. But it was held by this fantastic human. Her name's Linda Rawlings, and she runs a grief. She's the CEO of a grief center, but she also runs these like death rituals and retreats.
Okay.
And she's just great at holding ceremony, and it's beautiful for opening up the door to being able to step into another experience, to being able to process something, express something, love something, etc., etc. So I'd love to hear more about what your desire with the ceremony style things there, and what kinds of things you think the ceremony of fire can give people.
So fire can be used, I guess, in a couple of different ways. It can be used to celebrate and heighten something, because fire is dangerous and it's exciting and it's wild, and so it can really like make people like be like, oh, like crazy about fire. But then also fire, if you've ever sat and stared into the flames of a fire, it can be really meditative and relaxing and calming, and then you can burn objects within a fire, and that can be a sense of letting something go and releasing something, or sending it up to the heavens with the smoke and the flames. So fire can be used in a number of ways that way. And so I guess in the Burning Man and Blazing Swan sense, we use it like that. But I've done, kind of other ceremonies in other places where, say in an apple orchard where you make cider, they say that you can use the fire to kind of start to bring about the warmth of spring, and noise to wake up the trees to produce apples. And so you can have this fire ceremony involving like noise of pots and pans and things, and lighting the fires to wake up the orchard, to make the trees grow so you can make better cider. So it can be used in many different contexts. And
have you participated in a ceremony like that?
Yeah. So last spring we did that at Core Cider House.
Oh, really? At Core?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. And they've been having like a springtime fire ceremony kind of little one-night festively thing there for a while. But we sort of expanded on that last year with more fire performance, and I did like a flint and steel fire lighting. So from a spark, made a fire, we lit some torches, we did a procession through the orchard, making noise to wake up the trees, and lit a big bonfire. So yeah, you can have these kind of fun ceremonies that feel they have a sense of purpose. Or you have like when you have the temple at Blazing Swan or at Burning Man, which is like as the name suggests, it's a temple space but non-denominational, and then people leave messages or artifacts within the temple on the understanding that will all burn when the structure is ignited, and then you can use it to either release things you want to let go of. So you may put your diary in there of when you were going through a horrible time in life and you want to let that go, or perhaps a friend's ashes, or messages of what you want to send up to the heavens. You want to say something to your grandfather that passed away, you write that on the walls. And so then when this structure burns, it's this beautiful moment in which you're letting go of things and sending messages up to the heavens, and it can be really deeply meaningful for people who aren't otherwise religious, so that's a sense of ceremony as well. Fire has been used for all sorts of ceremonial purposes since we came up with fire, since we discovered how to make fire, thousands of years ago. And so I think it's very, very human to want to use fire in ceremonial purposes. And we kind of feel fire, we get meaning from it by being around it, but it's different to everybody. For some people are terrified of fire because they have a bad experience with it. And so, for them, it's a very different experience to somebody who has very good memories with fire. But it can be used in many different kind of contexts, I guess.
I spent a lot of time kite surfing. And quite often when I tell people about kite surfing, for many people they have negative experiences of water in the ocean, or just maybe they don't even have an experience, but their imagination gets them too much. So their first thoughts are sharks will get them, or they will get blown away by the wind, or something else will happen. And I quite often attempt to dispel that, but at the same time, I don't really mind. They can have it if they want. It just depends where they are. What do you think is the biggest misconception about playing with fire?
They think you're a pyromaniac and that you want to like set the bush on fire or burn down houses, or because a lot of people have.
So it's a question on almost on character straight away. It's just like, oh, you must be
nefarious. Like you're a pyro. Like, did you grow up like trying to burn down the back garden or something? You know, and and you have like fire can be destructive or it can be constructive, you know, and the way that we use it is as art and entertainment. It's very controlled and thought out. It's not out of control. Like, I have no desire to set bush on fire. Like, that's horrible. It's destructive. There's no good that comes from that.
I was itching to ask this question a moment ago as well, and now it's just jumped straight back in. So we're in Australia, and Australia was a place that the Aboriginal people look after the lands once upon a time using fire agriculture. Our flora here is almost entirely regenerative by being burnt in the first place in order to reproduce its seeds, at least as far as I understand. That, for various reasons, is a style of land management that is not very well received by people who build things that they don't want burnt down.
Yes,
but it's a very different relationship with fire. I did a tour of Perth City with an Aboriginal elder, Noel Nannup, and he took me around the city, and he also pointed out all the different ways that the Aboriginal people use certain patches of lands, and how that was the same with the way that we're using the land now, but almost in polarity. And so when the Aboriginal people migrated to the Perth coast the Perth City area along the Swan River, they kept a fire burning, and the area that they kept a fire burning is in the place that we've ended up putting the first fire station. So it's like quite literally like this opposite polarity of just being like, we keep this thing burning here, and they're like, no, we're putting a fire station on that block of land. So there's a very different relationship with fire. What's the kind of relationship with fire that like you find so deeply valuable and gratifying that like maybe have helped people move from this journey from like fearful to, I don't know, what is it, reverent, or what is it? Is it engaged by it or safe with it?
I feel like it's kind of an education, because lots of people, from the time that you're a tiny little baby, you're told, don't touch fire, you'll get burnt. It's hot, don't touch it. It'll get burnt. And it's kind of drummed into you that it's this really dangerous thing where if you get anywhere near it, you're going to burst into flames. And so people learn to be really afraid of it. They think that they're flammable, everything around them is flammable, and that if you have an open flame in an enclosed space, the whole place is going to burn down. We don't really learn about fire anymore. You know, like we're just told to kind of avoid it because it's scary and dangerous. And so it's nice kind of introducing people to it. It's like, no, if you understand how it works, how fuel works, how it's affected by airflow, different props that you can use that make it so that you can touch the fire to your skin and not be burned. You can spin it around your head and you're not on fire. You know, you don't set anything around you on fire. Learning to understand this kind of wild, untamable beast is really nice for people, because they're kind of like, oh, I can kind of almost like dance and interact with this dangerous thing, but as long as I respect it and understand it, I can actually use it in really beautiful ways. And I think that that's an interesting education for a lot of people, because all they've been taught before that is don't touch it, you'll get burnt. You know? So it's nice to kind of shift people's perspectives. It's like, you can touch it under these circumstances in this controlled way and you'll be okay. You know?
Do you have a favorite I'm going to use the wrong language here. Do you have a favorite prop or tool or fire
Yeah,
thing?
we call them props,
Okay,
or toys.
Yep.
Look, my personal favorite, like
Tell me about the flamethrower. Sorry.
Look, I mean, I love my flamethrower.
Yep.
Yeah, I absolutely love my flamethrower. And people always get a little bit excited when you tell them that, you know, we call it a flame projector, because when you say flamethrower, people think that you're shooting liquid fuel. Those are illegal in Western Australia. So it's a flame projector because it projects flames. It's a slight technical difference. Look, that's probably my favorite because it's so cool. Like it just looks awesome when you're shooting, 3-meter flames out of this big kind of Mad Max style gun thing. It's way awesome. But my favorite prop for interacting with people is probably the fire eating sticks, and that's one of the smallest props because it is just sort of a 30 centimeter long stick with maybe 4 centimeters of fire on the end, but it allows you to run fire over the palms of people's hands and up their arms, and it allows you to lick fire and fire eat, and it's the most tactile, and it's the prop that you can really get the most interactive with.
Yeah,
so that's a really
you
nice
can safely approach people with it, and they'll come to that little flame.
So it's nice doing that interaction with people because that's where you really blow people's minds because they can touch fire, they can have it run on their skin, and the look on a kid's hand when they give you their little hand, you run fire over it, is priceless. Because the first thing they do is look at their hand like, oh my God, I'm still alive. I'm not burnt. This is amazing. Like it just blows their mind. So I love the fire eating sticks for that interactivity. But then for wow factor, I love the big flame projector because it's just, it's an amazing thing.
Yeah, I've seen you rocking around in that with that flamethrower on you, and it's phenomenal. And it's just like, ooh, stay away from this person at this moment in time. But watch, it's going to be great. Do you follow Elon Musk? Do you know how he promoted the Boring Company? Have you heard about this?
Oh, I've seen his little flamethrower things, and that you could in America where their, weapons laws are wildly different. in
Americans, you're crazy.
In America, you can walk into, Walmart, like their equivalent of kind of Bunnings, walk in there, get all the gas fittings you need and essentially construct a flamethrower inside the store and walk out with your flamethrower because it's legal there to do your own gas plumbing. Here in Australia, it's quite different. You can't do that. It doesn't work the same way. So in America, they build the most amazing flamethrowers, the most crazy things. And, if you Google Burning Man and you look at any of their burning stuff, it's just next level. It's stuff you don't see in the rest of the world because their laws allow for it. Yeah. Ours don't.
Yep.
So so much harder to get that sort of stuff built and legal over here. Yeah, it's still possible, but...
That craziness in Americans does have some positivity to it.
It's awesome. If you're willing to take your life in your own hands, it's awesome the things you can do.
Yeah. So Elon he started a digging company where he's just boring holes underneath Los Angeles to make better roads, and it's called the Boring Company because all they do is bore things, and it's really boring. They're just digging tunnels. It's really it's as boring as things can get. Yeah. But to promote it, he promoted it with the Boring Company flamethrowers, and he made like a few thousand flamethrowers that he sold for like $5,000 a pop. And being the person that he is, they sold out like hotcakes, and now heaps of people have flamethrowers in their houses.
Of course, yes. I mean, they already did in the States, though. Like, if you look at the amount of flamethrowers at Burning Man, there's a lot of people with flamethrowers,
Yeah.
So, because they can just make their own over there, whereas over here we can't, unfortunately.
Yep.
I saw somebody made a drone with a flamethrower on it, and it was for getting rid of like wasps and bees' nests. We could fly this thing up to the right level where the nest was and then just shoot liquid fuel out at the wasps and get rid of them.
See this on YouTube?
Yeah,
that sounds great.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's a practical new use for a drone. A bit mean on the bees, really, but you talked about the fire stick. I guess when I was younger, a couple of fun experiences that I had with fire were really silly and really dangerous, but like still fun and kind of I guess helped me feel safe in the space to the point that like I'm not freaking out around it, which is good. But one of them was just with a can of deodorant. It used to be the old Lynx Africa, and it was just like you used to be able to just spray as much deodorant as you can in a closed hand inside to a little cavity, and then once you've sprayed it for like 30 seconds or so, you can light your hand on fire, and your hand will just burn. Totally fine for quite some time, and then when it's done burning, and you can maybe before you feel it, probably before you feel the burn, you can just shake it off, and that's quite cool. It's probably like a badly managed one. The other one was we used to play a game of flaming soccer. This was introduced to me by people from my church, where we'd just get a bunch of rags and we'd soak it in kerosene, I guess, and then you'd wrap all that kerosene and wire, and then you would just light the whole big ball on fire, and then you would just play a game of soccer with a flaming ball, and we would just kick those at each other with all of our force, and it was just like this roaring comet that would just go past you, and you'd be like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't get hit, and then you would go and try and kick it at someone. those are the stupid ways to play with fire. How do you how do you train people to play and help them take the steps so that they can always be on the safe side while walking towards the edge?
Look, I love hearing all the stories of the dumb stuff people do that are their first experiences with fire. And generally what those stories involve is no element of safety.
Yeah.
You know, where you've thought about the thing you're going to light and how it's going to...
Except for my church leaders who are actually facilitating
and
the
how it's going to burn. But you've never thought about how are you going to safely manage this fire. And I guess that's the key part of being a professional fire performer, is that you've thought about all the safety aspects. So you can by all means play fire soccer, but build your ball safely and have all the safety things in place. So that's kind of one of the first things that we teach people, is if you're teaching them how to do fire safely, you start with any of the props, learning it without fire. Because with most of the props, with the poi or staves, which are the sticks with burning ends, or any of the things that you use, there's a level of coordination that you need to have before you should even attempt fire. So you start by teaching people with non-fire versions of the props so that they get coordinated, they get all the moves. And then if they want to progress to fire, you teach them about fuels, what fuels to use, how to dip their equipment safely, how to light safely, what fire fighting measures they need or fire safety measures they need, so that if their prop goes flying off into a bush and the bush catches fire, how to put that out. Or if a part of their clothing catches fire, how to put that out, so that doesn't matter what you do, you're able to do it safely. And then you can, if you're on top of all the safety stuff, you can level up in terms of size of fire and danger, because you level up the safety stuff as well. So anything is possible provided you have the safety measures to look after it. So you kind of think through, how can this go wrong? And what safety measures do I have in place to mitigate that risk or to manage that risk, you know? So that's the key parts, is like we really drum in the safety aspect, because I have seen people, even people who call themselves professional fire performers, do some dumb stuff on stage where you're just thinking, what are you even doing? Like, that's horrendously dangerous, and you're lucky you're getting away with that. It's not your skill, it's just dumb luck that hasn't gone wrong yet.
If you keep doing it, the dumb luck will eventually... cave in on you.
And I've seen, you know, as you do on YouTube and various places, I've seen the accidents. I've seen people's faces on fire from fire breathing with the wrong fuel in front of a festival crowd where they're being paid as professionals to perform. And then
that'll make an impression.
And then they've chosen the wrong fuel. You know, maybe they're in a different country where they're not familiar with the fuels, and so they've picked something that doesn't work, and then their face and chest is on fire. It's horrific. And then if they have no safety, they have no way to manage that. It's just, these things can go horribly wrong in a split second if you don't have your safety sorted. And that's key. And that's kind of what we drum into people from the beginning, so that if they're going to do fire, they're going to do it safely, and then it's all good.
Give them the ability to step to the edge, but always be on the correct side of the edge. The key
with fire performing is people want to see excitement and danger. But you as the performer, it's your job to make sure that it's perceived danger, but not actual danger. You don't actually want to set the venue on fire or yourself on fire or hurt the audience. So you look like you're doing crazy, uncontrolled things, but really you've got all this safety stuff in the background that makes it possible.
I guess for the performance side, the more dangerous and hectic it can look, the better.
Yeah, the more exciting
side,
it is.
Especially for the spectator who can watch and just be like, holy crap, that was so out of control. Because their experience, like, if they're not a trained person, could see someone who's very well prepared and see someone who's ill prepared. And so long as the place doesn't burn down, they will probably still be on edge. So I guess like a skill in the art is making people feel on edge as possible, even though as the choreographer behind it, you know that it's actually, safe as totally safe, totally fine, no chances of anything going wrong.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was going to ask something else, but I forgot now. Yeah, cool. Tell us about, that's what it was. What do you like, and do you have many of those like laser fire toys that are not fire toys anymore, like a light poi and the laser poi and the
the LED props.
that's the one.
Yeah. Look, I personally, I have LED props. I can do LED shows, but I love fire.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with that dangerous element because it has a real wow factor to it.
Mm-hmm.
And with LED props, there is no danger element. It
Yep.
is just skills. So you're just showing off your coordination skills. And then if you've got expensive props, then they have a variety of lighting and stuff. And you can make that lighting work a certain way to music. So it's choreographed to music. So the lighting changes as the music changes.
Yep.
So there's kind of
There's
a technical
extra performative
skill
element there.
yeah, there's
Yep.
a technical skill there that's required, but that I'm not particularly excited by personally.
Yeah, but probably
Like-
a safe and great way to build that coordination that you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and look, and some people want to learn those prop skills, like they want to learn poi or staff or hula hooping, but then don't want to do fire. So for them, a great thing is the LED props, because then they can do all the skills, they can do cool, fun performances, but they don't have to deal with that danger element and the safety stuff of fire. Because some people just aren't interested in fire, but they're interested in the prop skill. So LED is perfect for them for doing performances.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's kind of each to their own. For me, like, I love fire. I love the danger of fire. And to some extent, as a fire performer, you can hide behind the fire in that I can just hold a fire stick and go, ooh, look, it's fire. And people go, ooh, it's fire. You're not even doing anything clever or technical, but just the fact that you have fire is cool. You do the same with an LED stick. No one cares, So,
Yeah.
yeah, so they're kind of different in that regard. I think LED certainly requires a high level of technical skill because you can't hide behind fire,
Yeah. Yeah, fire in itself. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So you were into Burning Man Festival from the mid 2000s, and so you had this revelatory moment where you're like, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
How did you are you is this what you do full time now? Do you do any other form of work, or you?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was actually a cartographer. So I went to university, studied cartography, which is map making. Yeah.
Cool.
And I did that for 10 years. And while I was doing that, I got into the fire stuff. And so it was just kind of a weekend hobby initially. And then I got so sick of working in the corporate world as a cartographer, and I also became pregnant, that I was just like, I quit that job and was like, I'll give full-time performing a crack. But then I was also pregnant, so you can't really, you can do fire spinning while you're pregnant, but I figured I probably shouldn't because I'm inhaling burning stuff that's maybe not good for me. There's no real research on it, but that was kind of my thinking. But then after my daughter was born, I didn't want to go back to the corporate world. So then I became a full-time fire performer, where I was just like, if I actually concentrate all my time on this.
And so how long ago was that?
11 years ago.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
so 11 years, and you're the fire girl.
Yeah, well, I was also a yoga teacher for a little bit, but I was teaching a maximum of 5 classes a week, which isn't much. That was more of like a passion thing rather than a decent income thing. So there's always been like a little something of a few hours here and there of like yoga, but 90% of my income is performance work.
How did you manage to pull off this transition? Like, where did your first gigs come from? Where do your gigs come from now? What's been the biggest surprise in terms of where you've focused energy in a transition to become a self-employed fire girl, where you've put your energy and that all of a sudden opened up a whole bunch of doors that you weren't expecting? What are some of the key wins for you?
So the way it kind of grew from being a cartographer to being a fire performer is initially, so it was myself and my husband at the time, Angus, he'd been performing in the UK as a fire performer. And that's kind of what got me into the performance aspect of it.
Where'd you guys meet?
We met in Perth here through the Perth Fire Group, which is, it's now called the Perth Fire and Circus Group. Because calling us the Perth Fire Group, people thought we had something to do with bushfires all the time. So we'd get people contacting us about bushfire management. We're like, no. So through that group, we actually met at the first SpunOut. So SpunOut is now 18 years old. It's a fire and circus festival that I now run. But the very first version of that was where I met him. And he'd already been fire performing for a number of years in the UK. And then he was living here in Australia. And so we met at that, kind of got together, and he was like, hey, do you want to do shows with me? So that's how I got into performing. But, you know, he had a full-time job. I had a full-time job. It was an occasional weekend thing. But then it was like, well, we want to do more of this. So we actively sought out more work. We got in touch with a few like agencies in Perth that, you know, contract out performers. I emailed every single nightclub and bar that I possibly could to be like, hey, we exist, book us. But it took several years to get anywhere near enough work to have a gig every weekend. You know, we were initially so excited when like once every couple of months we'd have a gig and we're like, oh, we have a booking, oh my God. You know, it took a long time to get known and get out there. And, you know, we started doing this 18 years ago. So that was before Facebook, before Instagram, before all that online marketing stuff.
Back when you were reading the yellow pages to work out how to call a nightclub.
Yeah. You had yellow pages, you had online forums for chat topics and things, you know, and you would email people to communicate with them. There wasn't like Instagram to Insta message them and all this. So it was much harder to put yourself out there. And so it took a lot of time. But, you know, the more we did, the more bookings we got, and the more of a reputation you start to establish that you exist, you do a good job. And we had like repeat clients, which was helpful. And it just kind of built from there. But I found it got, you know, after sort of 7 years, I was still working in my normal job as well as doing gigs on the weekend because it was not viable as a full-time business because it just wasn't enough money coming in. And I realized, like after I had my daughter, took a year off and then wanted to go back to performing, I was like, if I am just a fire performer where I just go out and spin fire, this is never going to be a living because there just aren't enough just fire gigs in order to kind of make enough of an income. So I sort of realized I needed to diversify. And I think if you want to make it as an artist, probably in just about any artistic field, you don't want too much of a narrow path because that limits the amounts of bookings that you can get. And I'd often get, you know, event managers and things ring up going, oh, you can do a fire show. What else can you do? Because we've got, you know, a day-long or a weekend-long festival. And they're like, well, what else can you do? And I was like, oh, we just do fire. That's all we do. And then I realized that I was limiting myself and I wasn't getting bookings because all we did was fire. So I started learning to stilt walk, and I made some fire stilt walking characters. So I'm like, oh, well, we can do stilt walking and fire. And then we did like roving, and then I moved into circus kind of workshops. And, you know, I learned to like hula hoop better so I could teach hula hooping. And I've always known how to roller skate ever since I was a kid. So I do roller skating characters. And then obviously I'm quite good at talking. I enjoy talking. And so I'm like, oh, well, I can do hosting of events. And so I started to kind of broaden my mind as to what I was capable of. And I stepped out of just that narrow path of only fire. And kind of the more in the arts community you are and the more bookings you get, the more you're known, the more bookings you get. And then the more people ask you, can you do this? Can you do that? And sometimes I'd literally just say, oh yeah, I can do that, and have no idea how I was going to do the thing. But it was kind of a case of fake it till you make it. Like, because I back myself in terms of my ability to do stuff. So if they'd ask me, can you do a thing? I'd say yes. And I'd know the booking was a month away. So I've got a month to work out how I'm going to do it, you know, and then I'd push myself. I'd do the thing and be like, oh, now that's a thing I can do.
Now you've got a whole trick bag worth of things. You can literally just say yes to anything because people will probably not have anything beyond their outside of their imagination that you haven't already heard.
So now in order to make a full-time living as an artist, I'm capable of so many different things that people now know, oh, if we need this, let's just call Hana, because they know I'm doing it full time. I'm pretty much always available, you know, 7 days a week. So they're like, oh, call Hana. We need someone to roller skate. We need someone to hula hoop. We need someone to stilt walk. We need someone to do a fire ceremony. We need someone to do roving. Like, yeah, I can do all those things.
Yeah, we can.
You know? So yeah, it's just kind of grown from there. By diversifying, it's made it viable.
So just before we started this chat, just when we were just sitting down and getting comfortable, we talked a little bit about some other fire things that you're hoping that all of this will move you towards. And I think I heard you saying maybe things like in movie sets, maybe things at more events and festivals that won fire that you could go in there and help choreograph or create safe shows or bigger shows or more exciting shows. What do you see coming up, and what are some of the things that you, I don't know, I guess if someone could help you in some space to make that kind of a workspace a reality, what's something that someone could possibly do for you to help you make that a reality?
I guess what probably a lot of people don't know is that, or skilled they don't have, is being a fire specialist. And I've kind of by natural osmosis through this performancy process have become a person of specialist fire knowledge. Like, I know how to make things burn safely, whether it's big structural burns of 12-meter tall timber structures, or it's little fire ceremonies or performances, or it's even like set work on films. If you need a lynch mob with a bunch of burning torches and you need them made period accurate so that they look like they're from the 1800s, I can make props like that. I can make things burn safely and manage the safety aspects of it. So I've really enjoyed over the years getting into that. And I've had the opportunity to work on some films doing fire, because generally films and TV ads and short films and things, they have a safety person. But the safety person's really good.
I have no idea about fire.
Well, the safety person's really good at lots of safety stuff, because there's lots involved when you're making a movie or a TV commercial. But they don't necessarily have specialist fire knowledge. And I only realised that after I worked on a few film sets. The safety guy kind of had no idea about safetying the extras with fire, and I'd been employed to make these fire torches and safety the people. And I was like, thank goodness I'm here, because the safety guy is looking after so many other elements. He doesn't actually have time to focus on this. So I would love to be involved with more festivals, events, film productions, TV shows, things where they want stuff to burn, but they want to do it properly and safely. That's what I'm a specialist in, and I see even big festivals and big events doing this stuff very wrong and not set up safely at all. And the only reason that it's going well is dumb luck, And so I would like to see more fire at events and festivals, because I think people love it and it's super
more
cool.
Education for how people can do that safely.
Yeah, exactly. But I'd love to be there going, this is how we can make a thing burn, make an amazing spectacle, but make it safe. So yeah.
Cool. Fire safety. Fire safety, fire education, fire events.
Yeah.
Put on a red hot show.
Exactly. What do you want burning? I'm there.
You talked about different ways to your knowledge in how to burn something, and some of that coming from being inspired from the Burning Man place as well, but also having the ability to practice a lot in lots of different places. You've got a very unique experience under your belt that very few people anywhere have, especially here in Australia, where we have less access to fire toys, as you're saying. I was part of the temple build crew at Blaze in 2019, which is the Lotus Temple designed by Niche.
Yep.
And you guys organized the fire ceremony for that, which was just gorgeously beautiful. Really sunk everyone into the moment to complement that wonderful temple as well. Beautifully in procession in white, with very deliberate and slow, gorgeous movements. As you were saying, it's not that high energy intensity. It's this like sink into the moment and let the fire draw you into stillness, I guess. So I guess I want to say that was beautiful. It was really cool. I also like the big wild ones, but that was really beautiful. Have you had the opportunity to do a lot of have you had the opportunity to do ceremonies for people outside of the space a lot? And like, what are some of the is there a beautiful standout for where you were able to do something with fire for some people?
I've done a few, but it's been in more recent years, so I don't have the sort of 18-year history of doing big structural burns, because that's something that's evolved over time. So it's a more recent thing in the last maybe 4 or 5 years that I've really started to get into the kind of fire ceremony aspect. But there was a really nice burn that we had in Fremantle, and it was these kind of burning Banksia flowers at different stages. So there was like a seed, a tree, and a flower, and they were built, like they were created by somebody else, these wooden art pieces.
One of them was created by James Hastings.
James Hastings,
Yep.
yeah. And so he made those, but then we did the kind of ceremony around burning them, lighting them in sequence so that they kind of burnt, and as one burnt down, the other one ignited, so that you had fire at 3 different stages over those 3 artworks.
Mm-hmm.
We did a beautiful procession around them and a bit of a dance with fire fans. And because, you could just walk up to a timber structure and put a light to it and set it on fire. But then what does it mean? Like, there's no sense of purpose to that lighting. There's no ceremony around it. There's no storytelling. And sometimes in that performance, you can have this beautiful storytelling. Like I went up to Shinju Matsuri, which is the Pearl Festival up in Broome, and they have the Floating Lantern Festival up there.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of years ago, they said to me, that they'd like some fire art installation on the beach there, because people come, they decorate these lanterns, they write messages on them, and then they send them out to sea, to send those messages out into kind of the ether, I guess, in a sense. There are boats that collect them to make sure that there's no rubbish left in the ocean, in case anyone's wondering. But it's this beautiful symbolic process where thousands of people walk down to the shore, release these lanterns onto the ocean, and it's at sunset, and they've got lights in them, and it's beautiful. But then when people turned to look back up the beach, there was kind of nothing there. There was some marquees and lights because there was drinks and food and stuff after. But it was a bit of a end to the process. And what the festival wanted was something so that when people looked back up at the beach, there was something to draw them back in, something beautiful to engage with. And so the fire sculpture that I did for them, and this was actually the first fire sculpture that I'd built. So I was used to burning other people's artworks, but I hadn't actually made the artwork myself. And so I made the words Shinju Matsuri, but in Japanese kanji. So that's the Japanese sort of symbols that they read and write in. And so it said Shinju Matsuri, and the letters spanned 9 meters across the beach and were 3.5 meters tall. And they were just kind of standing up out of the sand. But the parameters for that burn was to create a clean burn, because they didn't want any mess on the beach. No burn scar, no ash and mess and stuff. So it was the science of creating a burning artwork that would function well and do the job that it was meant to do.
And then disappear to nothing.
But then kind of drawing people in and being like, oh, this fire, and people love fire, they're drawn to fire. And then the taiko on drummers that they had there, they came up the beach and then they were drumming, and then the people surrounded the fire, and like fire and drums are just classics of
let's go back
human
5,000 years.
tribal, and then to see people's faces in the glow of the light, and everybody came away from that event just being like, wow, that was really amazing, like that was really on another level. They loved the ceremony of releasing the lanterns, and they'd been doing that for many years as part of Shinju Matsuri, but having that element of the big fire and drums just really elevated it and gave it kind of even more heart and soul than it already had. And so I think that to me was a really awesome burn, because it was the first one where I'd created the structure and I'd done the thing from conception of conceiving the idea to building it, getting it out there, installing it on the beach, burning it, cleaning it away. It was the full process.
Wow, really cool.
Yeah.
What is Shinju Matsuri? What does that translate to?
So Shinju Matsuri is Pearl Festival.
But just that's what it
Yeah,
means?
Matsuri means festival.
Yeah.
So Shinju is like Festival of the Pearl. Yeah, and that happens up in Broome every year. It's a 50-year-old festival. They run for 50 years now, because the pearling community up there had a lot of Japanese divers. The Japanese
because I've seen the imagery probably from Japanese imagery of the lantern that's lit that floats away from the shore.
Yeah.
So they brought that festival or that event from Japan to Broome as a result of the number of pearlers.
Yeah. Basically, Shinju Matsuri runs for a couple of weeks, and it's a big community festival. There's all sorts of events that happen at it, and the Floating Lantern Festival is just one night of that. And and so it brings that, because it is a very traditional thing that they do at a certain time of year in Japan. And so they've brought that over as part of the festival, as part of, I guess, almost kind of cultural learning for people to learn about Japanese culture and traditions, and that's a traditional thing that they do. And it is led by a Japanese lady up there who kind of oversees that. And then they have the taiko on drummers from Perth come up there, which do traditional Japanese drumming. And so they try and really respect the culture and project the right traditions, you know. Yeah.
I'm going to temporarily derail this conversation. We're going to
Sure.
get back on tracks, maybe. I
Sure.
can't help myself right now because
Yeah.
Kristen from the Church of Belligerence has told me a ridiculous story about another Japanese tradition with the Japanese men and pearl farms
Yes.
that involves some body modifications. Do you know anything about this before I...
Pearl farms, Japanese men and
before I
body
bring
modifications.
before I bring myself into disrepute.
No, not three things I've normally tied together and I'm familiar with.
Oh, goodness. I'm going to have to get him on this conversation to share this in more detail. So there was a tradition that was born apparently sometime from the Japanese pearl farmers in Broome as well, where for every year that they're away from Japan, because when they first came here, they're all planning to go back. And a lot of them came, I think, with partners that they left in Japan as well. And they came as, married men. For every year that they were away, they would cut open their penis and embed a pearl underneath it and then stitch it back up and allow a pearl to just live underneath their penis. And it caught on, and there's a large number of pearlers in general. It's not just not just something in the Japanese industry. I think lots of Aussie pearlers, or many pearlers up there, have taken to body modification with inserting pearls so that they get the ribbed effect. Those condoms were probably just stolen this idea from Japanese pearlers.
That's probably not something that they promote as part of the festival up there.
That's what you'd see in
it's not in the
sideshow
Pearling
alley,
Museum.
yeah.
It's not in the Pearling Museum. I've been, and it's definitely not there.
They just let that one slide.
Yes.
You heard it here first, and I heard it from Kristen. So yeah, thanks to Kristen for that ridiculous story. More details on that one to come another time.
He knows a lot of weird stuff, that guy.
Yeah, he does. Rewinding back to SpunOut, so it's been for 18 years. I was under the impression that you were part of starting that. Is that correct?
Yes, kind of. The very first year was not my doing. That was Jed's. So Jed and I have run SpunOut now for the last 18 years together.
Oh, cool. The two of you together?
Yeah,
Yep.
but he started the first one because basically there was a couple of really awesome fire spinners coming over from Adelaide for a little bit to visit Perth. And he was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could learn some stuff off these people? And he kind of organised a 1-day, 1-night event up in Landslen where it was just like, hey, book yourself a dorm in the hostel. I've hired the hall up in Landslen. We're all going to go there. We'll do some workshops. We'll learn off these cool people. We'll have a fire jam back at the hostel afterwards, which is where everyone fire spins. And then the next day we all just kind of went sandboarding and stuff up in Landslen. And that was that. But we probably had maybe 30 or 40 people come, and I was one of them. So that was my first real introduction to the sort of fire spinners that existed in Perth. And everyone just loved it. Everyone was like, wow, that was really cool. When can we do that again? And the next year, I think Jed was away somewhere, and I then became part of the fire spinning sort of community. And so I was like, oh, well, I'll organise a thing. And then we did it down in Dunsborough. And so we had a camp hired there. We did it there. Everyone loved it. It was there for a few years. Then we moved it closer to Perth. But basically I've been organising it ever since. And then Jed and I have been basically doing it together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
the latest version is now how long? And I understand it's like an all-inclusive, the ticket comes with food, accommodation, workshops.
Yeah. We try and make it really simple. So the whole event is there. We run it not for profit. We're not an official not for profit organisation or anything like that. We're just a loose collective of humans, really. But we do it for community building, skill sharing. So the tickets are only like $250, and the event runs Friday through to Monday, and we have some workshops on the Friday. We have full days of workshops on Saturday and Sunday. Monday, everyone packs up and goes home. The thing now happens out at Point Perrin. There's a camp out there. We had to move last year because we'd just grown too big for the site that we were on, basically, and we needed to move to somewhere that could accommodate the sort of 200 people that we have coming.
Point Perrin is Perth area.
Yeah. So it's down towards Rockingham. So it's about 45 minutes or something south of the city centre.
Yep.
And it's all inclusive. So you pay your money and you get your 3 nights accommodation, all your meals, all your workshops, all the performances, fire fuel, workshop props, everything. So we try and make it as simple as possible. So you just turn up, play and have fun. You don't have to worry about making food or signing up for workshops because they're limited number or anything like that. You know.
So that's really cool. So that's the start of SpunOut. I also understand that you are a contributor to creating Blazing Swan in Perth as well. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
How did that happen? Geez. I don't know. A few people got together and went, "Oh, we could do this thing over here."
You're obviously already quite in love with the values and the world which Burning Man has shared with the world, and continues to share with the world, and continues to spread out of that epicenter of love, joy. So a bunch of you got together and you're like, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, the problem was that, we got to a point where a few of us had been from Perth over to Burning Man and been like, this is awesome, but it's a pain to go from Perth all the way out to Nevada, and then you're very limited in terms of what you can do in terms of contributing to the Burning Man community, because you can only bring a suitcase, so you can't really do art cars and theme camps and amazing structures. And so we had a sort of creative visionary collective of sort of a dozen of us here that kind of went,
who are some of those people? I know so little about this. It's crazy.
Look, there was Wes and Tim and Dan and Ollie, and it was all guys pretty much. I think I was the only girl in the collective at the time.
Yep.
And there was also a guy who'd done Africa burns as well. And so we had kind of felt like we've got these interested kind of people. Maybe we can do it here. Maybe we can do something. And so there was basically a meeting where people just felt enthusiastic and we're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's make this happen. And that's how it started. It just came from the belief that we could.
Yeah, wonderful.
That on some level we could. And we weren't trying to replicate Burning Man, but we were just trying to bring the same vibe, the same principles to here. And then being like, well, now we can do a theme camp. We can do an art car. We can do all this cool stuff because we're going to have like a little Burning Man just down the road. It's more accessible. So that's sort of what it started from. And I think our committee we had to be officially organised. So we set up like a, not-for-profit sort of a thing. And we had like 8 of us running the entire event to begin with. And and we kind of muddled our way through the first year, really. Like we only found the piece of land we had the event on 3 months before we had the event. So it was just kind of like, pull it all together, let's see what we can make happen. But then we walked away from it going, wow, like that really worked. Like that actually felt like if you took a block from Burning Man and you just plopped it out in Coolin, 4 hours out of Perth, that's what it felt like. And we're like, I think we did it. Like we could do this again. This works, And so it's kind of gone from there.
Thank you for being part of the seating committee who created that event here in Western Australia. It's so beautiful. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's nice when a group of people get together and go, do you think we can? I reckon we could. Let's give it a crack, and then it works. And other people join you and it grows and then it's got a life of its own now.
Yeah. So outside of fire, what do you like to do on your weekends?
Well, people always assume that I have a hobby, perhaps, but I don't. Like
Are you reading a book, watching Netflix?
I watch
painting the house.
I do watch Netflix, but I watch really dumb stuff on Netflix. Like it's more to switch off rather than to be intellectually stimulated.
What's your latest really dumb thing on Netflix?
Oh, look,
One
I'm
of the
not even
last-
going to say.
No, one of the last three. Come on. I
No.
was watching Anne with an E. It's awful.
And with an E. I don't think I've even come across that
And
one.
I was watching pieces of her, and I'm watching the F1 series.
Yeah. Oh, look, I really enjoyed watching Vikings. If anybody enjoys Vikings, watch Norseman. It's like the comedy version of Vikings. It's so good.
Okay, and what if you don't like watching Vikings like me? Do you still recommend Norseman?
Yeah, I do, but you can't. You've got to have a sense of humor about you, you know, because it is kind of a piss take on Vikings. But I feel it's more realistic of how things really would have gone.
Okay. I thought
it's very entertaining.
I thought Vikings just had really, really poor acting in season 1, and I couldn't tolerate it.
You couldn't do it.
No,
And watch Norseman. It's deliberately got some dodginess in there.
It sounds a little bit more up my alley. Cool.
Yeah.
So that's one way of relaxing.
But that's not the crap TV. Like, I will admit I have watched the Kardashians.
Oh yeah.
And I do enjoy it.
Yep.
But you know,
They're pretty influential people.
well, they are. But you know what? After watching it, because I thought, look, this is going to be rubbish, but I'm putting it on as background while I'm hanging laundry. But I've actually developed a respect for those women as business women that actually work really hard to maintain the empires that they have. And I'm just like, okay, you know, like.
I couldn't. Yeah, I don't think favorably of the Kardashians, but when I got Instagram years ago, one of the very first people I started following was Kim Kardashian, because I was just like, I just want to learn more. Right?
Yeah.
And the first thing that stood out to me about Kim Kardashian was pretty much everything that she put up, she got about 10,000 spiteful comments.
Yeah. She's
And
very resilient.
that absolutely blew my mind. Just like literally every time she puts anything up, it speaks so much about some of the things that are going on in the world and in people. It's just like she's just put a thing up, and 10,000 people have want to abuse and criticize.
Yeah.
With that 10,000 probably also come 10,000 like absolutely infatuated devotees. So it's pretty wild, but like it definitely shines through how like committed she is, and how like big business minded she is, and that, you know, say what you will about her, she's absolutely doing some ridiculous things.
I think you have to be quite thick skinned and resilient, and have a lot of self-belief and drive in order to be able to keep brushing that aside and moving forward with what you believe you want to be doing and you know you're good at. You know, and she's been attacked by people. People have flower bombed her and thrown stuff on her. And you're just like, what are you people even doing? Like, it's not okay to throw stuff at somebody just because you don't like them. Like, you know, but she'll get like flower bombed at, you know, on the red carpet to somewhere. She'll go backstage, she'll clean herself up and stuff, and she'll go back out there. You know, like that to me is a certain just drive and toughness and resilience. That's actually quite admirable, regardless of what you might think of, you know, cosmetic surgery or whatever she's had.
It's almost graceful, like to actually, which is in contrast to her character, because you would not that would not be the first word that I would describe Kim Kardashian with, as a graceful person. But then at the same time, if you're a person who's actually continually receiving abuse and actually not really doing all that much about it, and just kind of being thick-skinned in that way and continuing onwards without wanting to get back at this person who's just been needlessly horrible to you, is
I think as an artist as well, you need that. If you're going to put yourself out there in the public eye, like doing performances or creating art or anything like that, some people will love it, some people will hate it. And, you know, you need to be able to deal with criticism. Like, people will say, that was rubbish, that show was crap, you're not very skilled, you're not very good. But then you'll have other people going, that was the best thing I've ever seen, you're so amazing. And for some reason, all the negative stuff tends to stick a lot better than the positive. Like, you need 100 positive comments for one negative one, because the negative stuff sticks. And to learn to kind of push that aside and not let it affect you is, I think, a real skill that all people in the public eye and all performers need. Otherwise, if you let that stuff stick, it will like really drag you down after a while.
Yeah, you can't please everyone. Like, that's actually impossible. And if you attempt to please everyone, you'll actually end up becoming almost enslaved to the person who's most difficult to please.
Yeah.
Which is a race to non-desirable way of being.
Yeah. And then as an artist, you can't be yourself. You then can't create the art you want to create.
Yeah.
If you're afraid to be vulnerable and to be criticized and to put yourself out there. Yeah.
Have you had any of that journey yourself personally, where you kind of realized that you're in this place where you had to be willing to, I guess, upset a few people or be willing to receive some negative feedback?
I think as an artist, you're always your own worst critic. You know, you're always kind of second guessing, could I have done that better? Am I more skilled? You see people more skilled around you and you think, oh my God, I'm rubbish. Like, that person's way better than me. What am I even doing on this stage? Like, I've had moments like that. And it's learning what makes you special and unique as an artist. Like, for me, I know I'm not the most technically skilled with the props that I have. I can use a lot of different props. I'm a very varied performer, but I'm not brilliant at any of it. But I'm very good at all of it. And I'm good at performing it. You know, you can give me any prop and I will do a performance with it. Some people are very good technically. They're technically amazing, but their performances are really flat because they don't connect with the audience or they're not dynamic across a stage.
Yep.
But they're technically very good.
Yep.
So it's kind of about learning, like, actually what makes me good. You know, I remember sitting at Rainbow Serpent Festival, and they have a fire stage there, and watching like a highly choreographed duo poi routine. So it's when they've got poi and there's two performers and they're spinning around each other and doing the poi around each other. And it was technically brilliant. And I thought, oh my God, I am so rubbish. Like, I don't even belong on that stage. Like, oh my God, how can I even call myself a fire artist when I don't have that technical level of skill? But then after watching them for 2-3 minutes, I thought, I'm bored. They were so technically brilliant that the danger element of fire had been removed, you know, and so it didn't seem dangerous or exciting. They may as well have been spinning lights. And then I thought, oh, maybe that lack of control or that slight wildness that you have with it is actually a pro, and being that controlled is maybe not as brilliant as I think it might be, or it has a place, but then my style of performing has a place too. And so you kind of go through a lot of internal self-criticism as an artist constantly to be like, am I good enough? Do I deserve to call myself this? But you've got to find, I think, what makes you unique, makes you special, and makes you good at what you do, and then just believe in that and work with that.
I had a birthday party years ago that was themed Hungry Animal Circus, and we were all playing a game. And it's a game where you grab a cardboard box, a box of cereal or something like that, and you got to pick up the box with your teeth. And then once you picked up the box with your teeth, not using your hands, and then your hands aren't allowed to touch the ground. Once you picked up the box of your teeth, you got to rip a little layer off and put it back down, and then it just goes around in a circle until the box gets lower and lower and lower. And while we were playing that game, there was a few people who were playing the game who are extremely physically able,
Right.
who could pick up the box with their teeth, no problems, right? And it was really boring.
Yeah.
Like they were, you know, the most technically able to do this, but it was just really boring. And then there was people who couldn't pick up the box at all, right? Like, because they had no flexibility and horrible balance, and they were overweight. And they would give it a red hot go and fall on their face twice, and it was hilarious, right? Like they were the greatest. And then there was people who would just try really hard, and people who would be just really lots of character, and the clown came out, and that like performative energy came out, and it totally changed my perspective of what performance means. Like in the work environment, I was always like, yeah, it's the person who can get the thing done the quickest. It's not. It's just like the person who can hold everyone's attention together, so everyone's just like entertained and enjoying doing the thing.
Exactly.
Which, like, if you are the person who can do the best and you're not the center of attention, can sometimes be a little chip on your shoulder, because if you're like the best fire twirler ever, but really boring at watching it, it doesn't really work. Where alternatively, like the clown can come through and not juggle, not backflip, not fire twirl, not anything, and just blow the house down.
Character does a lot for a performance, you know, and you don't need high levels of technical skill if you've got good character and engagement, and if you have a real joy about you in terms of what you're doing, then if people see that you're joyful and happy, they experience joy. You know, like if you've ever watched somebody do any kind of performance and they look uncomfortable and like they don't know what they're doing, you feel uncomfortable for them. You're like, oh my God,
Cringe.
I feel so sorry for them.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that they're really struggling. You don't enjoy the performance, you know, whereas if somebody comes out and they're just wild and animated and having a great time and they're like, you know, projecting all this energy, you feel that and then you get that and that's how you then feel. And you walk out of the show going, I don't even know what they did, but I had a great time. Like it was amazing, you know. So, and there's a lot to be said for that. And if you can do both, if you can be technically skilled and then interesting to watch and animated and have good character, then, you know, you're an absolutely winning performer that will go a long way.
I think they're completely necessary to have both if you want to be a winning performer. It's like, my personal opinion is actually that the technical is great, but it's that ability to be like raw or funny or performative that really draws people into it first. I think with a lot of technical things, lots of people don't know how hard something is. You know, if you were to go and watch Travis Pastrana and his motorbike friends, like. And just going off what you said before, that you didn't know who Travis was. Maybe you do know something about motorbikes, but you'd watch him and be like, I don't know how hard that is. Like, is this hard? Is this not hard? He actually said in an interview like that when they first put out some of their shows and they were doing like the world's hardest tricks and they were not landing the world's hardest tricks, that people would be watching and be going, they mustn't be very good at their jobs. It's like, no, you don't realize they're attempting to do something that no human has ever done before. But someone else just sees them fall and go,
they're not very good.
They're not very good. And it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that's when the show became like this comedy show. Like almost, it's like it's high energy comedy show because everybody eats into that more than they do just the raw technical talent, which can be a bit dry.
Well, a lot of street performers will use failure to build up their successes. You know, so they know a trick and they have rehearsed it. They know how to do it the first time and do it correctly. But they will build up to the audience, say, this is really hard. You know, I've only attempted this like once before and it's never gone well or whatever it is. And then they'll do it and they'll fail. And the audience is like, oh, come on, you can do it. And then they'll fail again. And then they get the audience clapping and cheering and building up energy. And then on the third go, they nail it. And everyone goes mental and cheers for them. They wouldn't have done that if the person had just been like, I'm going to do a difficult trick and then nailed it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like sometimes that raw element and that failure actually helps build excitement and interest for your successes then, you know? So, yeah.
So what's it like being a like a full-time fire performer now for a long time, who's got a lot of involvement in festivals? Like, what does a typical week of your life look like? And or if there is maybe a typical month, if we've got to maybe have to zoom out to some scale, like how are you generating business? How many people are you talking to? How much time do you spend with friends? Or like what's it like?
It's ever changing. So it kind of tends to go in a 12-month cycle, really. And that's what I notice here in Perth because I'm always based in Perth. I know other performers might travel around the world and follow where most of the work is, so they're busy all year. But because I have, you know, a daughter and family here, then I'm in Perth. So I look at my kind of performance cycle in terms of the 12 months of the year, where we're really busy, or myself and my fire troop, we're really busy in the lead up to Christmas because it's springtime, there's lots of events. And so I'm basically living event to event, week to week. You know, Monday I go, okay, what gigs are coming up? Because they're normally on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for fire performances. We might have stilt walking ones or workshopping ones at other times in the week, but it's generally the weekend. So Monday I look at the weekend that's coming and go, okay, what props do I need to get ready? What costumes do I need to get ready? You know, I need to make sure that all my artists are ready to go out to their various gigs and things. And then once that weekend is over, the next Monday comes and I go, right, what's coming up for the next weekend? So it's literally living week to week because you're so busy and you don't have the ability to be sorting out stuff for a show in a month's time because you've got so many shows the coming weekend. So that's the lead up to Christmas. January tends to be quieter, but we tend to have a lot of weddings at that time. Weddings, birthdays are kind of the main January work, but it's not as busy. February, we move into Fringe Festival, and so there's a lot of fringe type spots and performances. So there's a lot of rehearsal and prep for those. And that's kind of February, March. Moving into April, I'm organising things for Blazing Swan because I'm the fire lead for that event. So I'm doing my normal gigs, but I'm also doing a lot of paperwork and stuff, getting ready for that festival. And then once Blazing Swan is over in April, come May, work starts to slow down. So there's less gigs each week, and then I have more time to actually catch up with friends and family and kind of do fun things that aren't performance-based, you know, when I'm not making costumes or props or organising gigs. And then probably by the time we move to June, July, August, that's kind of the dead zone here for most performers, where in winter Perth, not much happens. There's a few sort of winter festivals and things, but there's nowhere near as much work as there is over the warmer months. So I might only have 2 or 3 gigs in a month. So over that really busy period of the year, I have to save money, kind of squirrel my money away to get me through the winter period with less work.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years I've been quite lucky because I've had work up north in Broome and FIFO gigs in like Tom Price and Karratha, because that's when their events and festivals happen, because winter up there is a nice time to be up north.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's like FIFO gigs, and if there's enough of that work, it gets you through the winter. And then come September, you start the kind of run up till Christmas, and it progressively gets busier and busier. So I kind of look at my year in this 12-month cycle.
What month of the year is SpunOut again?
It's the last weekend of September, October.
Okay,
so we
cool.
normally have it at the start of October, but this year the weekend is over that September, October switchover. There's a weekend.
Okay,
there.
so this year, 2022, it's literally September, October.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a website. It's spunoutfestival.com.au. So the dates are on there.
Yeah, so SpunOut Festival is .com.au is for the festival. Dangerous Delights is for .com.au is for all of the performance arts that you do in the private space, I guess.
Yeah, it's dangerousdelights.com, and that's myself and my performance troupe. So it's not
how
just
many are in your troupe?
There's a sort of core of 4 of us, but then there's about 6 to 8 that I kind of draw on mainly, especially in the busy time. So when it's the quieter period, there's sort of really only work enough for 4 of us. But then as we get busy, there's 8 of us. But then I have more people that I can draw in. We've done performances with 16 people before, you know, because obviously I know lots of people in the fire community through running SpunOut, and I know what props everyone uses and what they do. So I can draw in more people
choreograph a big thing as
for bigger
required.
Performances. Yeah. So we've done stadium gigs where we've had, 16 of us out in the stadium fire performing. And
Which stadium?
HBF Stadium.
Was that for a band or for a footy show?
It was for I think it was HBF. It was for the rugby, the 2020 rugby. And they always have entertainment just before the game.
Is that the Twiggy's rugby?
Yeah. Thank you, Twiggy, for employing us.
Twiggy is Andrew Forrest for anyone who doesn't know who Twiggy is. If you don't know who Andrew Forrest is, that's right. He'll come to you soon enough.
So they always have entertainment there on field. And so we had pyrotechnics on the field done by a pyrotechnics company.
I saw Wolfmother at one of those rugby games that Twiggy organised Wolfmother to come back. They were really cool. They disappeared.
They're getting all sorts of entertainment for like a whole 3 minutes before the game starts, but it's just short and sharp. There's a lot going on. Like I came in on a zip line into the stadium with fire. And
yes.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Did you write that in?
Hey?
Did you write that in?
Right, as in, was it my idea?
Yeah.
Well, they said to me, we've got some zip lines. Do you want to maybe do something on the zip line? I'm like,
yes.
Yes, I do.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that was
that's
super
a beautiful little gift. Cool. So wanting more events like that, as you mentioned.
For sure. It's like, you want me dangling from a helicopter with a flamethrower? Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Anything I haven't done before, I'm totally up for it.
Yeah. Yeah, wicked. Wicked. Is there a stadium that you'd like to perform in, or a venue you'd like to perform in?
Oh, I don't know. Anywhere. Look, I'd love to somehow Jag being in Cirque du Soleil briefly, somehow be part of a show. It's like, let me burn stuff, Cirque people. I've seen some cool stuff in Cirque du Soleil, but they don't involve much fire generally. There's very little fire in Cirque du Soleil, and I feel like I could bring some in there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Cirque du Soleil people are listening out.
Yeah.
Got to create a fire show.
Yeah, let me come and burn things.
Yeah. I wonder if that's like you said, could be a difficulty with like traveling and you're going to different countries, and some people are like, those are weapons here, you're not allowed them. It's just like, no, it's our circus prop.
Yeah. Oh no, you can work your way around these sorts of things, and yeah, it's all workable. It's definitely all workable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Mm.
All right, Hannah. I think this has been a really fun conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of your fiery stories.
No worries.
Or a lot
look,
of your fiery
that's
stories.
not all of them.
Yeah, sorry, excuse
It's
me.
It's a few.
Yeah, I'm sure that's actually just a few. Actually, just want to give a quick mention to your wonderful shirt because you're wearing a T-shirt that says, I do all my own stunts, and it's got the man who's normally on the exit sign running away, but he's on fire, which is very appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a screen print design of that because I did maybe 10 years ago see it on somebody's T-shirt, and I thought, I want that T-shirt. And I've Google searched, could not find it anywhere on the internet so I could order it. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to make my own one from what I remembered 10, 15 years ago when I saw this T-shirt. And I'm like, yeah, it's just the exit man sign on fire. That's standard. And to the text. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's got some good humor in it.
Thank you.
Wicked. Thank you very much.
No worries. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Love sharing what I know with people.
Yeah, cool. I hope people have enjoyed listening to this, and I hope they find you at Dangerous Delights or SpunOut Festival or somewhere else sometime in a big stadium or big movie or helicopter with a flamethrower soon.
Me too.
Cool.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Hana Priest. What an absolute firecracker. After that official recording finished, we hung out in the studio and we got talking about her first experiences on movie set, which was with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. You can catch that recording on Patreon. You can also catch the recording of her and I discussing what's going to be the best event anywhere in the world happening in my home state of Western Australia in 2023. Come check it out. It's worth being a part of. I guarantee it. Lots of love to you all. Ciao.